All right, hey everybody, welcome to a special crossover episode of Full Steam Ahead and the Boiler Breakdown podcast. I'm your host of Full Steam Ahead, a podcast about Purdue, Adam Bartels. And joining me on this episode is Tanner Lee, Evan Webb, and Andrew Eiler of the Boiler Breakdown podcast. Guys, how you doing?
Doing great, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. This is awesome. Just an opportunity to kind of talk about each podcast and kind of cross-promote each other, guys, because, hey, anytime we can promote the Purdue brand, it's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hey, before we kind of just jump into talking about a lot of Purdue sports, let's kind of just get some introductions for each side to kind of just talk about each other's podcasts. So we'll start with you guys, kind of each take a turn introducing yourself and your connection to Purdue.
Yeah. I'll take this one since I'm the oldest. I'll go first. Boiler Breakdown. We started this podcast. Actually, Evan and I started it as a spinoff of one of my other podcasts I do, the Tin and J-Man Show. And we just kind of had a weekly segment called the Boiler Breakdown. We'd talk Purdue every week. And then
I just 2018, I believe is when it was.
I think it was 2018. And then in 2019, I said, let's just make this a regular podcast. Asked Andrew if he wanted to join us. All three of us grew up together in Rochester, Indiana. We're lifelong Purdue fans, and we've just had a ball doing it ever since. We've had a few interviews here and there, but basically we just try to record once a week during the football and basketball season, and we've loved seeing it grow and develop the last 2 years. As far as becoming a Purdue fan, I really had no choice. I grew up around it. My dad went to Purdue. A lot of my family members went to Purdue. I grew up going to ball games. My parents have season tickets for football and basketball since I can remember. So I really didn't have a choice. Well, I did, but I didn't. So I went to Purdue from 2010 to 2014, graduated in December of 2014. And while I was there, I went to all the basketball games and football games. I even had the opportunity to be a football manager for 2 years under Danny Hope's last 2 years, 2011 and 2012. So that was an enjoyable time. And now I'm a season ticket holder of football on my own. So, and a John Purdue Club member. So.
That's awesome. Cool. Tanner, how about you, Evan?
Yeah, a lot like Tanner. I really didn't have much of a choice growing up. My dad also was a Purdue grad. He went to school for pharmacy. He was there the last time I went to a Final Four. He has an infamous story. I'm not sure he wants me to tell it, but about he almost hit Joe Barry Carroll with his car. That's about all he tells me.
How many times have you heard that story, Evan?
Too many to count. But yeah, just like Tanner, I went to Purdue as well. I'm a year behind Tanner, so I went graduated high school in 2011. Went to school 2011 to 2015. Graduated December 2015. Did the 4.5 year route. So Tanner and I, we both did the half victory lap at Purdue. Graduated from Cranert. Originally started out in pharmacy. Realized pretty quickly that was not my forte nor my strong suit. So I went to switch to Cranert. Graduated in 2015, moved down to Indianapolis right afterwards. And yeah, so I've been a fan my entire life. I still tell us another podcast I did last night, but I'm pretty sure my dad can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure my first Purdue football game that I remember was the Notre Dame Breeze game where he was a helicopter for a split second going for two. But yeah, so I've been going to games my whole life. So it's been a lifelong, sometimes torture, but I love it.
That was my first Purdue game I went to, and that was my freshman year at Purdue.
Nice.
I age myself. I'm a little older than you. My freshman year, that game was awesome. So, hey, Andrew, how about you?
So kind of similar, Tanner and Evan. Grew up in Rochester. Dad went to Purdue. Grew up going to Purdue football games. Kind of hard not to be a Purdue fan when you're 7 years old, going to see Drew Brees and Ross Abe. So that was pretty cool. I actually did not go to Purdue. I actually went to Butler. I played golf at Butler. Was not good enough to play golf at Purdue. So had to go to Indianapolis, but it works out because Butler football is, we'll say, not Division I. So it worked out that Purdue could still be my football team. And then basketball, unfortunately, they do play about every other year in the Crossroads. It's always tough for me now. But, kind of growing up, Tanner and Evan and I always talking about Purdue, going to games together. And, leading up to this podcast, we always had that group text, and then it just kind of evolved into this podcast. So.
That's awesome. Hey, if there's one other school in the state to go to, Butler's the one, right? I mean, you can't ask Butler.
Yeah. That was the only school I applied to, so.
Yeah, you're not going to the south, not going north.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I took a little bit of a different path myself. I did take the victory lap. I actually did a full fifth year because was foolish, or I don't know, foolish. I changed my major halfway through, 2.5 years, and so started in TCOM and then finished in film studies. So, but I actually didn't grow up a Purdue fan. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and about the time I started watching and liking sports, Michigan football was good. The Fab Five was at Michigan. So I actually, anybody who probably listens to this podcast regularly, I've mentioned it a few times. I grew up a huge Michigan fan, still cheer for them on the side. But my senior year of high school, so I hadn't decided where I was going to go to school yet. My guidance counselor was like, well, you need to make a decision. You are a senior now. So I applied a few places, including Purdue, and got accepted and fell in love with the campus immediately. And then, like I said, I took 5 years there, finished. I met my wife there. So it's a lot of good memories there, and some friends I still talk to today. And yeah, so that's how my Purdue fanship started, not till 1999.
So do you remember watching the battles between the Big Dog and the Fab Five?
A little bit. Yeah. So again, like I just wasn't as strongly familiar with Purdue at that time. I mean, I was watching sports by then, but so yeah, a little bit. Of course, the Fab Five run was pretty sensational, and obviously that stands out for several reasons. But yeah, but man, ever since I went to Purdue, it's been.
Forgot about that Michigan school, huh?
I'd like to say that, but I can't deny I still root for them, and hey, they got a good thing going up there, especially for basketball now. I'm trying to be non-biased, I think, and we'll get into maybe this a little bit later, but I honestly think Purdue and Michigan could finish 1-2 in basketball this year. So
I can see that.
There's nothing wrong with that with me.
Yep.
Oh man,
Both schools hate Notre Dame, so we're good.
Yeah, there you go.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I would like to think both schools hate Ohio State as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nobody likes Ohio State, right?
Nope.
Cool. Well, you kind of mentioned how the podcast started for you guys on your end, kind of a spinoff of your other podcast there. Let's kind of talk about it. Obviously, you guys said you all mentioned growing up as Purdue fans. Just tell me about the Boiler Breakdown podcast, what you guys talk about, what it's about. Do you guys have guests on, any of that, all that stuff?
Yeah, we normally try to record it at least once a week. Sometimes it's twice a week during football and basketball season. We usually recap games, preview games. Last year during COVID, during the summer, we did have a few guests on. We were lucky enough to have Corey Sheets on, Travis Dorsch, Evan Boudreau. Am I forgetting anybody, or those are the only three?
I think those are the big three that we had. Yeah.
Big three. I know we were talking about having some other guests come on, and it just didn't really work out the timing, but we're open to having guests on as well in the future. But we basically just do recaps and previews of games. And luckily as we're seeing this podcast grow, we get a lot of questions, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, because we live stream to all three of those at one time. And we don't really have a set day or time. It's just whenever our schedules can collaborate there, we kind of make it work. And sometimes there's just two of us on the podcast if one of us can't do it, which is nice, though, that two of us can kind of grab the ball and run with it. But yeah,
we'll have some friends too. Like I know we'll have our friend Aaron Lynch, who's a fellow Purdue grad, went to Rochester as well. He'll hop on if either just as a fourth member, or if one of us can't make it. We'll have, and we've got a good buddy who we grew up with, who's a diehard Indiana fan, football and basketball, one of the rare ones. And he'll usually come on. We've had him on, I think, twice now, both years, to preview the bucket game. So he's fun to talk with because he's smart and is fair.
I'd say, yeah, exactly. A more realistic IU fan. Not many of.
And once in a while we'll do trivia shows. My dad likes to come on and be the moderator of those. So yeah, it's fun. We try to keep it loose and fun and interact with everybody who's watching. So it's a good time.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, my brother's an IU grad, so it's a friendly brotherly rivalry there too.
Yeah.
So, that's cool, man. You meant that you guys like to do some trivia on your podcast too. You mentioned the live streams as well, so that's cool. Sometimes when I'm working, I try to catch some of that, watch some of that live, and it's fun to just kind of watch you guys interact on that as well. So I've enjoyed following along your guys' podcast the last couple of years. You mentioned you started in 2018. Full Steam Ahead started in 2019. 2019, June of late May, June of 2019. It was kind of, around the time our station, we had a political podcast called In Focus. That was a show that was on Sunday mornings, and they just kind of also made it into a podcast. People just want to listen to it. And then they started a Colts podcast called the Blue Zone after we became the Fox and CBS affiliate that is the official home of the Colts here at Fox 59 and CBS 4. And so I just went to our news director at the time and said, hey, do you care if I start a podcast? And he's like, about what? And I was like, about Purdue. It's like, okay, well, if we do Purdue, we probably have to do the other Indiana schools as well. I was like, I mean, that's fine with me. I'm not going to do them. I'm not going to talk about IU. I can talk about Butler. That's fine. Like, I'm not going to at least promote IU anyway. I was like, but hey, if other people want to join that, we just do like a campus kind of podcast thing. But time went by, nobody else wanted to take those reins. So I finally got his blessing to just kind of move forward. Started off with the Trent family with Tony and Kelly Trent. Of course, anybody who's a regular listener of my podcast knows that Tyler Trent, a friend of the family and a huge inspiration to me. And I probably could say thousands, not millions, other people. Obviously, anybody who's a Purdue fan knows Tyler's story. But just his love for sports and sports writing just kind of inspired me just to do this. Not be afraid to try to start something. So. Also, I always kind of felt like in Indianapolis, there was more of an IU bias than a Purdue bias.
100%.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
In the local media. So I was like, hey, we gotta put the Purdue brand out there. So I had my former news director, Matt Wagner, shout out to him, his blessing to kind of take this off. And I got the Trent family to do a 3-part episode to start to kick off the thing. And then I secured early interview with Mitch Daniels and then Carson Edwards early on too. So that kind of got me off to a good start to try to get some credibility there. And it's been fun. I think you guys are going to be episode 114 or 115, somewhere around. So like, nice. It's been awesome. It's been really cool. Like you guys, I try to do about one a week. A couple of times during football season, I've done twice where I might do an education because mine focuses on like education, of course, sports, happenings on campus events, research kind of thing. So I try to do a little bit of everything. So sometimes during like football or basketball season, I'll do academic episode, but then also fit in a relative sports episode as well. So it's been fun doing this last couple of years.
How do you come up with your guest list?
So various things, like obviously how this one formed out, just reach out to you guys and seeing if you're interested in doing this. A lot of the sports ones, I'll reach out to somebody up at the athletics department to see if that's something possible, or a former athlete. I'll maybe reach out to Elliot Bloom or somebody else, or Chris Foreman. Somebody might be able to help hook me up with somebody, a former athlete. Then I've had a lot of suggestions. There's a guy named Matt Oates up there who works for the communication staff, and Tim Doty, who's a former colleague of mine here at the station, and Ethan Braden, who's also in the communication staff up there. They've pitched episodes to me and helped me get those set up and talking points and whatnot. So those guys have been a huge help. And if they pitch something my way, I usually take it. I mean, they're all interesting. Sure. Often tell people I've learned more about Purdue actually in the last 2 years than I did in the 5 years I was on campus. So it's been really cool, really educational for me, actually, just learning about a lot of the research and schools and alumni. That's the thing I've been trying to do the last year or so, is feature a lot more alumni too. It's been cool hearing some of their stories as well. It's been awesome just getting to share those with the listeners.
I've learned a lot from listening to your podcast. I think they've been great. So I've enjoyed them. I
appreciate that. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys I know you guys have liked or retweeted a lot of my episodes as well. So I appreciate you guys' support. And like I said, I love listening to yours as well. It's easy to talk and listen to Purdue sports. And again, just the Purdue story in general. It's been a real blast. So that's for sure.
Boilers helping Boilers. That's how
that's right.
That's how I look at it.
That's so true. Yeah. You guys mentioned a couple of guests, if you don't mind. I mean, it's hard to narrow down, when I've done 13, 14 episodes, a favorite guest. I'm glad you didn't ask me my favorite guest. But I mean, just to highlight a few, I mean, like I said, the Trents, my 50th episode was David Blau. He was awesome. That was my first actual video episode as well, after COVID kind of started. And I'd taken a few week break just kind of collect myself and what was going to happen next with the podcast, because as far as getting guests and everything, what was happening up on campus. And I was able to get David Blau, thanks to help with from Tony Trent. And Blau, man, he's awesome. I mean, we all know what a great guy he is. And just getting to talk about Purdue football, getting to talk about the Ohio State game, getting to talk about his relationship with Tyler, and then, of course, his journey so far to that point through the NFL. So he was awesome. Of course, I've had President Daniels on 3 times. He's been great every time. Painter a couple times. Finally got Jeff Brom last year before the season started. John F. Gates, professor up there. I've had him on 2 or 3 times, mostly talking about just race relations and social justice. So that's been awesome, just getting to hear those perspectives and have that conversation, especially last summer with everything going on. So he's been another favorite that I've enjoyed. Done a lot of space-related episodes because, of course, Purdue's the cradle of astronauts. So
Absolutely.
I try to get my little NASA magnet in there as well.
I saw that, yeah.
Love it.
Jerry Ross was my 100th episode. And
That's awesome.
That was a really cool episode talking to him. And of course, anything sports, I had Greg Goff on twice. He's one of my favorite coaches. I love Coach Goff, and I've had Coach Shundell on a couple times as well. So
Just
I could
an
go on.
extension.
I could go on and on, but I mean, the list is exhaustive, but it's been really cool just getting to meet and talk to and learn from a lot of these guys.
Was there any guest that made you just like maybe pre-interview nerves more than another?
Of course, President Daniels, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to impress the president of the university.
Yeah.
But he's such a laid-back, great guy. I mean, I got to cover him when I was still a videographer here, when he was governor, and a big supporter of him at that time as well, and enjoyed covering him at the State House. And then, so I was elated when he became president of Purdue personally. But yeah, there's still definitely some nerves there, but he made me feel pretty relaxed, and he asked me questions too before he even started.
Yeah.
Second time I interviewed him, I actually interviewed him in person. I did one. This was really cool. I don't know if we'll get to do it again until things kind of relax with COVID, but the first year I was doing it, so it would have been like fall of 2019. I just went up on campus and recorded like 4 or 5 episodes in one day, and then released a couple of them as time went on. And I got to do Coach Painter that same day. So I went from President Daniels' office
Wow.
to Coach Painter's office.
That's cool.
So that was a little nerve wracking because you want to impress them and show them that you're knowledgeable and hopefully get another interview in the future, right? So,
Right.
Absolutely.
and then of course interviewing an astronaut, you don't want to say.
Yeah, he's probably pretty smart. He's going to make you look down if you're not on your game.
Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. It's been a blast, and just kind of working through the whole COVID thing too. And that's when I decided, like I said, to go to virtual interviews as well. So I do the video interviews go up on our website on Fox 59 and CBS4.com. And then audio, obviously, of course, on all the platforms you guys probably use as well. So yeah, it's been fun. Well, should we talk some sports?
You're going to have to get, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, you're going to have to get Spike Albrecht on or something like that. Get your Michigan-Purdue connection.
I did have Spike on a few months ago.
Yeah.
Spike was awesome. I was really looking forward to that episode. And one of my best friends from Purdue actually texted me because I have a good friend, Chris Froylan. I'll give him another shout out. He's listening. I don't know if he's listening to every single episode. I know he's listened to most, if not all. And he'll always text me, hey, love this episode, love this episode.
Yep.
After the Spike episode, he's like, next episode, talk a little less about Michigan. So, that was great. Yeah, Spike was awesome. And I love that he's now back with the basketball program this year too. And he's such a good dude. And I'm from the region. I don't know if I said that earlier. I'm Northwest Indiana. So I love I've had several region guys. And actually one of my first interviews as well was somebody I graduated high school with, Dr. Libby Richards, who works at Purdue. So we were talking about back to school kind of stuff like that. So it's been fun having some local connections up there as far as the region goes as well. So
A lot of Purdue presence up there in the region.
Yep.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Hey, all right. Well, let's talk some sports.
Let's do it.
Well, we'd probably start off with the one that's closest. We're less than 2 weeks away from Purdue football. What's your guys' thoughts?
I can't wait.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been 5 years since I've been to that double overtime heartbreaker in the bucket game 2 years ago. Double, triple, I don't even remember. I think it was double overtime. Might have been triple overtime. But either or.
Yeah.
I keep stressing, I think this is one of the most important games in the Jeff Brom era. I just think with the way the schedule lines up for Purdue, they need to get off to a good start. And it starts week 1 against Oregon State, who's a program that's had its up and downs in the last decade. I was doing some research the other day. I found it interesting that their defensive coordinator is Tim Tibesar, who used to be the defensive coordinator at Purdue in 2012. So, so a little connection there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry. You can say a primetime game. So
Yeah.
Excited under the lights at Ross A. Andrew, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, sorry, Tanner, I had flashbacks when your most important game. It was all our eggs in one basket. I had the Cincinnati flashbacks in my head.
Marshall. It was
gosh. Marshall. Gosh, yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah,
sorry, that was bad flashbacks.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, looking at the schedule, I printed it out. You got it here in front of me. I was just trying to prepare and say, well, what's a realistic record this year? And I've got mine jotted down here as 6-6. I'm curious what you guys think.
I'm right there. I think, I know we've kind of talked in our group chat. I think just make a bowl. I don't care how you do it, just don't lose a UConn, but make a bowl. I think 6-6 is probably right. I think where we're at. Realistically, I mean, obviously we can steal one here or there, but I think 6 is definitely should be the bare minimum goal.
Yeah,
I think the realistic ceiling, if we're not going too crazy, would be 7-5. I think that would be stealing 2 of them probably that we shouldn't get, but I'm right with Evan. 6-6 and you 6-6. I think. I mean, I could definitely see 5-7, unfortunately, but that would be pretty disappointing. I think to get the momentum back on track, they need to make a bowl game.
Yeah, Andrew,
I'm hoping for 6-6. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm with Tanner. I could see 4 or 5 wins. Just not an easy start. I know Oregon State, Connecticut, Notre Dame is the non-conference. You don't throw a like Eastern Kentucky in there or somebody like that you're going to kick the crap out of, but like some other schools will schedule. But
I mean, 6 wins with this schedule. I mean, it's like a top 5 hardest schedule in the country. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
but then kind of at the same point though. I mean, it's Ohio State, Wisconsin. I mean, those are the 2 obviously, and Notre Dame probably is always tough. I mean, Iowa's going to be tough, but like outside of I guess those 2-3 games, I mean, Purdue should have a somewhat decent chance unless things don't blow up.
Yeah.
And we played Iowa well under Braum.
Yeah.
I mean, beat them last year. Yeah. Obviously, it was before they kind of caught fire last year, but I mean, we've got a good record against Iowa under Braum.
We're 3-1 under Braum against Iowa. So.
Yeah, that's been very good there. And Andrew, you mentioned the 4 that I had as what I felt like would be losses: Notre Dame, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. I had question marks next to Nebraska on the road, Michigan State at home, Northwestern on the road, and then of course Indiana at home. It's crazy to think like Indiana at home would be a debatable game, but that's where we're at now.
It's hard to stomach.
I mean, I think that's 4 games that could go either way that I think at least should be competitive games, and all bounces our way, for lack of better terms, that you never know. So
I know luck. I know one I got circled, and it's Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, we had them last year. We all know what happened. Payne Durham got called for pushing off, but with air quotes. But that's just one team. It seems like we just haven't got them in a while, and I think that's going to be crucial if we want to get to 6 wins. That game right there. It's homecoming. Hopefully we're 3-1 at the worst going into that game.
And it's a team that, aside from Wisconsin, that's who we need to. Wisconsin, Northwestern, that we have to beat if we want to even be considered a contender for the West. We've obviously proved against Iowa. We've proved it against Nebraska a few times, but those top tier teams of Wisconsin, Northwestern, and I mean Minnesota's been obviously 2 years ago they were really good. But it's just a team we have to beat that we just haven't been able to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this next question by saying I really, really love Jeff Braum, but if they win 5 or less games, in your opinion, does he become on the hot seat, especially with that contract he's got?
Yeah, I don't think he gets fired, but I think his seat gets very hot going into next year. If Purdue was to fire him, I would think they would have to win only like 2 games, 1 or 2 games, then maybe. But I don't see that happening.
The team would have to quit. They'd get blown out.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he knows the pressure's getting cranked up, and that's why he made all the changes to the defensive coaching staff.
Yeah, I was going to say he definitely did everything he could within his power, trying to bring in some better players, and of course changing up some of the defensive side of the ball. So hopefully those will be enough. Yeah, I definitely think he's on the hot seat this year, but it could get a little warmer.
And that's the big question mark. We have no idea what the defense is going to bring. I mean, a whole new coaching staff. I mean, you got Mark Hagan back. Ron English is added to the staff.
Brad Lambert.
Thank you. I couldn't remember his first name. Brad Lambert, and some other additional staff, new defensive staff there too. So, I mean, Big George, he sounds hungry. He's healthy. He's ready to go. I listened to an interview he did yesterday with Barstool Sports, and he said the goal's over 14.5 sacks for the season. So if he can get that many, I think Purdue's defense will
He's
be
gonna
in
make
pretty
some
good
money.
shape. Yeah.
He gets that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, how many years was Brom a head coach before Purdue at Western Kentucky? Just a couple years as a head coach?
3, I think, right? 2 or 3.
3 or 4, 3?
3, yeah.
2 or 3, I was thinking. So, I mean, he's kind of still figuring it out. I mean, if you're firing a coach every 5 years, not really giving him a chance to build it. So hopefully, I mean, I think you got to give him this year, next year, at least, definitely for sure, to kind of get his guys and system and kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
I believe he's only Purdue's 5th coach in the history of the football program to reach year 5.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
You got to think about the fact, like last year was you just throw out everything last year. That was just wacky. But the year before, so snake bitten with injuries. I mean, I when I talked to him before last season, I had asked him, have you ever seen it where I think all his captains, maybe all but one captain, missed most or all of the season in 2019 or 2019.
Yeah,
and you have your two best players go down on the same play.
On a little dump off, like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and, Bailey goes down in practice and kneels her. I mean, it's hard to survive that at any program, especially a program that doesn't have depth like an Ohio State or Michigan or Wisconsin, to make up for that. So I cut him. I definitely at least a little more willing to cut him some slack in that season too, because I was just caught a lot of bad breaks that year for sure.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because I feel like a lot of the Purdue fan base has kind of turned on Jeff and forgets. I mean, yeah, last year we can kind of throw it out of the books, but they forget 2019 how injured that team was. And I mean, what was the touchdown streak? 22 consecutive touchdowns by freshmen. That's pretty absurd. So, so hopefully they can stay healthy.
The only argument they really have though is that Nevada game when we were pretty much full strength, which was just, I still can't comprehend what happened. I was watching it and I don't even know what happened, but it's the last 2 years have just been bizarre, and obviously don't want to make excuses, but there's a lot of reasons why I think the seasons went the way they did.
Yeah, that's for sure. Also curious on what you guys think about the QB battle. I know this is I think a contentious topic for you guys, and I know there's some people who don't like Jack Plummer in this room, but
not in this room. No, that's the person's not here right now.
Okay. That's one of our special guests. Sometimes,
It's very opinionated.
All right. Well, that said,
oh, God.
Who's starting next Saturday night?
I think Plummer.
I think Jack Plummer. If you would have asked me about a month ago, I would have said Aiden O'Connell, but I've changed my tone. I mean, Jeff Brum hasn't really given too much away, but if you listen to his comments, you got to think he wants somebody who can run a little bit and move around the pocket. And unfortunately, Aiden throws a good ball, but he just doesn't have that mobile attribute really.
Yeah.
Well, see, I feel like we said the same thing last year though, where we thought Jack was going to be the clear, and then it was first game, it was O'Connell. And I mean, it becomes because Brom is all about. I mean, he's a passing team, and he likes it out, and O'Connell can do that. So I agree. I think it's Plummer, but
yeah,
I think we'll see both of them.
I have a feeling too, and he has mentioned many times he's not afraid to play 2 or more quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think the wild card's Austin Burton. I don't think it's out of crazy left field, I guess, that we could see Plummer start next Saturday, but Burton have a package or two that's consists of the option or something kind of nutty that we haven't seen.
Yeah. I'd love to see a game. I don't know if that's going to happen against Oregon State, maybe UConn, hopefully. Of course, when does Purdue ever really blow out people anymore? But
never.
It would be nice to get a taste. I mean, maybe that's a bad thing if, Purdue fans, the back court is always the favorite player. So
right.
I want to see Burton. I want to see what he's got in live action for Purdue. I agree. I think Plummer's starting, but I'm interested in what Austin Burton brings to the table too.
I mean, he's got to bring something, or I mean, they just don't go out and recruit and try to find a transfer quarterback out there in the portal unless they
when you
like
already
him.
had 2 solid QBs that have started. Yeah, it was pretty bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, Alamo or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think he's a factor, or do you think he's still a year or 2 away?
I think he's still a year or 2 away. It's actually funny you brought that up. I had a friend of mine, a Purdue fan, text me. I thought Alamo was supposed to be the stud. I said, I think he's going to be good, but I said he's a redshirt freshman. I said, how often do freshmen come in and start right away for Purdue? Basically never. So, I mean, it's just part of it. And then next year we'll have another good, high talented freshman in Brady Allen coming in. So it's just it's one of those revolving doors all the time. Yep,
for sure. That's another reason you don't want to see anything negative happen to Brom too, because he's getting some recruits, and especially at the quarterback now, especially with Brady Allen, you don't want to see a coaching change and then him, shift gears and follow him out the door as well. So yeah, futures, at least I think I think there's at least depth there now at that position. If the unfortunate incident, another injury, as we saw the last couple of years, where we've gone down to the third, even fourth string quarterback, that I think there's at least some talent in depth there. If that happens injury wise, or like you said, if they want to throw out some packages featuring some of the other guys as well. So any other position battles that you guys are interested to see how they play out?
I'm really intrigued at the wide receiver. Obviously we know Bell and Milton Wright are probably your 1 and 2, but I'm really interested to see how some of these other guys fit into the mix. Obviously you've got TJ Sheffield will probably be in the slot. Anthrop is, Mr. Reliable, will be out there in some capacity. But then guys like, I'm hearing a lot of great things about Brock Thompson from the Marshall transfer. So it's like, seeing where he fits in. I know we've talked about him in the past, but we'd love to see somehow Marcellus Moore get on the field just because he's quicker than lightning, it seems like. Not sure, in terms of how physically ready he is for football, for Big Ten football, but you can't teach speed like that. So just getting on the field in some capacity. But the wide receiver room has been under Brom the last couple of years. Is just absolutely stacked, and just curious to see how some of these guys fit into the mix.
Yeah. Marshawn Rice is one I'd watch.
Yes.
Wide receiver room. Everybody's praising him. He's been really banged up his first 2 years at Purdue. So, you look back at that wide receiver class itself, it was so deep and so talented. So hopefully we now start seeing the guys get on the field.
And even sorry, go ahead, Dan.
You're not going to replace Rondell Moore. Nobody is, but luckily I still think that's Purdue's strongest position group is wide receiver.
And you got what's the name, David Bell or something like that. He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Not bad.
There was I was hearing good things, at least around the first scrimmage, that Preston Terrell from Brownsburg, that he was, I think, making some good plays. Obviously, I don't know where he'll fit in as a freshman, but maybe more of a special teams player, if not, just an outright redshirt. But it's a stacked room again.
What do you guys think of running back? Horvath, Noru.
That's what I was going to say.
We got what we got. We got 3 guys, and that's about it.
If there's some development there, you feel a little bit better, that, especially if the line is developed too, to help block, open up some holes for those guys. Because I think there's some talent. Horvath surprised me a little bit last year with, deceptively, a little deceptive, but impressed me at times, especially when he's leaping over guys. And, if King Daru can stay healthy, I think there's, a chance he could be a really special kid there as well. So, hopefully there's a little more depth there and a little more development. And we need that to help open up the passing game, I think. So,
go ahead, Andrew.
No, it's a big year for the running. They've invested a lot in it with 2 offensive line coaches, and Brown's been talking about it for 2 years, but we have to be better in the running game. So it's kind of like time to show it.
I think this will be Brom's best offensive line, but what I'm concerned is the depth. They've had tons of injuries already in the offseason. A few guys kind of quit their Purdue football career. I'm just worried if a few of them get nicked up. I don't know how much depth behind there that are ready to come in and play right away.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, I'm also a Bears fan, so I often sometimes see some parallels between Brom and Coach Nagy, and the fact that they're both very quick to give up on the run game if it's not working right away. But for both teams this year, I'd like to see both coaches maybe attempt to run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, cool. And like you guys we kind of already mentioned the defense a little bit. It'd be interesting to see if they take a huge turn for the better this year with all the changes on the staff wise, and hopefully that translates to some better changes on the field. And of course, Carl Loftus will play a huge role in that as well, putting pressure on the quarterback as well. So it'll be hopefully a good year. I think it should be at least interesting, at least more exciting to watch. And, we got maybe overexcited when we started 2-0 last year, and then the wheels kind of fell off from there. But again, last year, I just kind of throw that out and was just thankful to have any football last year.
Absolutely.
As we mentioned earlier, the Michigan thing, I mean, the wheels fell off for both my programs last year. So it was at that point. But you mentioned the Bears. I'm a huge Bills fan, so I at least had something to root for last year.
There you go. That should be pretty good again this year. So.
Yes, yeah. So I'm excited for football to get here. That's for
Absolutely.
sure. Well, we should mention another fall sport because Purdue football is obviously huge and the big moneymaker on campus, but there may be a better sport happening this fall, returning this fall after playing winter last year, summer, spring, whatever you want to call it.
Spring, I think. Yeah.
Purdue volleyball, I think pre-ranked number 8 or top 10 at least this year. They actually start in a couple days here on Friday night, kicking off their season. It's exciting. What do you guys think about Purdue volleyball?
I mean, they're really good. I was obviously following them pretty closely last year throughout the tournament. Watched the loss to Kentucky, which Kentucky, that team was wow. They were stupid good. What I just think is crazy is that they're ranked 8th, but yet there's like 3 or 4 other Big Ten teams in front of them. So it just shows how stacked the Big Ten is, and when it comes to volleyball. But yeah, I mean, we're all huge Dave Shondell fans, just from as a coach, but also just as an advocate for Purdue sports and just what a cheerleader he is for their sports. So definitely a sport that deserves much more love than they already get. So hopefully people pay a lot more attention this year. Yeah. Especially now that we can get fans back in Holloway.
Yeah. I remember going to my freshman year, Purdue, I wanted to say made the Elite 8. I think they lost to Texas. I remember made it really far. And just going to those games was so fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, I gotta say I haven't been to any other volleyball venues, collegiate venues around the country, but I gotta think Purdue's one of the best, if not the best, in the country. And like Evan said, Coach Dave Shondell, what a great representative for the university. And I'm so happy today to see that he got a 4-year contract extension. That's really well deserved.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of my favorite people, period. I've had him on the podcast twice, including he was my last episode as well a couple weeks ago. Incredible guy. I mean, this guy deserves a lifetime contract for his
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He is awesome. Like you mentioned too, he's such an advocate for the other sports, always promoting the other squads as well. And that's really awesome to see. And just a solid stand-up guy as well. I mean, can't say a negative thing about him. And man, when I was talking to him, they returned all 16 players from last year. You had 4 freshmen, including Colton's daughter. I mean, it's exciting. But you mentioned too, the Big Ten, man. Big Ten volleyball is solid, stacked, and we talked about the benefit of playing a non-conference schedule this year, which they didn't have last year. It was all conference games. So, but he also mentioned their non-conference schedule ain't easy either because. The selection committee looks at strength of schedule, especially for volleyball. It's really significant there. So he's like, it's not like our non-conference schedule is a breeze to ease into the Big Ten season. So
he takes the Jeff Brom approach and beefs the non-con up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think all Purdue coaches do that. Painter beefs up.
Painter's a big proponent of that too. Yeah.
Yeah. growing up, I used to watch, and still do loathe, Michigan State and Tom Izzo, but I always, as much as I don't really care for him, I always respected that Michigan State always had arguably the toughest schedule or non-conference schedule in college basketball. And then when Matt Painter kind of took that approach once he got the team established, I was like, man, and we've seen some seasons where we took some punches to the face, in the non-conference and kind of but kind of were bruised going into conference season, but then that pays off come tournament time, especially a couple of years ago in the Elite 8 run, people are, kind of counting Purdue out early on, it was a year after.
It was, I think they were 6 and
5 or something.
They were 6 and 5. I remember I was like, for whatever reason that year, I felt like weirdly just calm. I was like, they'll figure it out. It's fine. And like I know Tanner was ready to.
I remember saying on the podcast, I hated the team at 6-5. I thought they were selfish. And then Evan's trying to calm me down. And then look what happens. They end up winning the Big Ten and going to the Elite 8. So what do I know?
I mean, that's the thing they have with Michigan State, as you said, Adam, is like they'll lose like 3-4 games in non-con, or maybe they'll lose a couple games early on in the Big Ten. It's like, Michigan State's finally fallen off, and then boom, they make the Final Four. It's just, it pays off in the end.
They're so battle tested. They're prepared for the situation. So, yeah, I mean, that 2019 was at the tournament. Yeah, 2019 tournament. And yeah, 6-5. And gosh, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Chris. I want to say it was Chris Kramer. Somebody on Twitter right after that said, everybody just breathe.
PJ. It was PJ.
PJ, yeah. And then boom. Because that was the year after they lost all those guys. PJ Dakota, Isaac and Vince, and everybody kind of wrote them off. And I was kind of like you, Evan. I was like, okay, this is kind of a letdown, but I was also not up in arms about it. And then, gosh, man, they turned around, especially once Carson started hitting too, because I know there was some struggle that year and frustration with the shot selection, but you couldn't question that shot selection in the tournament, that's for sure.
Yeah,
dude was on fire. So,
oh man,
yeah. So it'll be an exciting time to see. I guess we kind of got off of that with talking about the strength of schedule there, but yeah. So hey, that'll make the Purdue volleyball team ready and better, and they got some great players on that team too. So they returned, I think, all the seniors who elected to take that COVID year. So yeah,
huge.
But there is a challenge. Coach Shondell and I talked about that. Now you got 20 players who are all probably at least deserving of playing, and you got to figure out how to get those best 5 or 6 out there on the court. So
good problem to have, I guess.
Good problem to have, that's for sure. So, all right, well, let's talk about a couple other things real quick here. Purdue basketball, it's a little bit away, but excitement and expectations are kind of astronomical this year. So
not a good spot to be for a Purdue fan. Having expectations is not good for a Purdue fan.
No,
it's so exciting yet terrifying.
Cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah.
On paper, this is the most excited I've been going into a season since the 09-10 season, which was Robbie Juana Etwan Jr. year, when we all know how that ended up. Don't have to relive that. But yeah, I mean, this could be the year that Purdue does something special. All the pieces look to be beyond their at least paper, and then you're adding some very talented freshmen into the mix with Trey Kaufman-Wren and Caleb First. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all gel and the lineups Painter puts out there. But you got to think Jaden Ivey and Travion Williams got to think they're probably going to be preseason first team Big Ten, but I could see the voters putting one of them second team. But it's going to be fun.
I hope they do. I'll just get a little more fire into them. So yeah, I think it's clickbait, and I fall for it every year. The way too early preseason polls for the next season. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the highest somebody had us was 5.
I think that's what I saw.
I mean, that's also. I mean, it's awesome. We're getting respect, but I think I talked to Coach Painter or somebody or Elliot about this before. I sometimes like when they forget about unranked or whatever, and then you can just kind of use that as fuel. But I don't know if players are just locked in anyway, if they really read into that as well. So it's always interesting to see. But hey, at least it does give us something to talk about and be excited about too. So
yeah, it'll make some great kind of preseason or pre-Big Ten season, marquee games. I know we have North Carolina or in the tournament that we're in, and whether we win or lose, we play either Villanova or Tennessee, which we met both those teams in 2019 on the road to the Elite Eight. So there's gonna be some great opportunities to kind of prove, if we are ranked that high when the rankings officially come out, prove the reason we're, prove us why we should be there in the first place.
Yeah.
And like we talked about with the scheduling, with how tough it is, I mean, they're going to take their lumps like they always do, schedule those tough games, and it could be kind of a good way to keep the team humble almost. I mean, they have these big expectations coming in, and it'd be kind of interesting to see if they have a tough start. So maybe they lose a couple games the first couple months, and then Painter can kind of be like, okay, maybe you're not as good as you think you are, and then it kind of remotivates them, refocuses them for crunch time kind of once they hit January, and then they kind of turn on like Painter's team seems to do when they peak kind of end of February, getting into March, they kind of start peaking, seems like. So
yeah, I think there's probably you guys can tell me if you disagree, but probably his deepest team he's had too, with basically everybody returning, and then outside of Aaron Wheeler pretty much, and then bringing a couple of stud freshmen. So managing, again, a good problem to have maybe, but managing playing time for everybody. And again, the benefit of hopefully what we hope will be a normal year this year with a full non-conference schedule, that iron out some of those wrinkles and stuff and just kind of figure out what the best lineup starting and your second unit, because he really could actually have a full, second unit this year if he wanted. Sometimes he starts to thin out the depth chart as the season goes on, but it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out as well.
And one player that we haven't even mentioned, and I mean, he might end up being Purdue's best player this year, Zach Edey.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? A guy who, going into last season, I thought would maybe redshirt last year, and he became huge. And that probably doesn't happen if Matt Harms doesn't transfer, right?
Right.
100%.
I was very concerned because, Trevion had never really played more than like 18, 20 minutes a game. And now after Harms, we're like, crap, we're pretty thin down low without.
And now we have to rely on a kid who's played basketball for 3 years. Yeah, he's big, but
he's awesome. He did well with Canada on the U19 circuit this summer. And of course, Jaden and Caleb can win that all too. So that was an awesome experience for them two guys, the three guys really to get to play in that, get some extra experience. And then Jaden and Caleb getting to play some time together on some real-time basketball as well. So
it's just wild in my head. You mentioned how deep it is. Guys like a guy like Brandon Newman, I keep forgetting about, and he's going to be a key piece of the team. So there's so many guys. Like, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Brandon Newman, like Ethan Morton, who when he committed was it was a massive deal, and then obviously last year, just because of his situation with mono and not having a normal off season to really get into the system, he was a forgotten player, really, sometimes not even playing a whole game. And it's like, man, he could be really, really good once he figures it out.
Yeah. He was a big time recruit for a reason. So yeah,
that's the thing. I love Brandon. I love Ethan too. And those are two guys that, I hope, if they get lost in the depth chart a little bit, those aren't the guys who kind of check out and transfer, because they're players we need that on any given night. As we saw Brandon Newman last year, that can go off for 20 to 30 points if, they're feeling it. So yeah, I hope that depth stays and those guys buy into, Painter's system and his plan and just trust the process, because the depth is there in any player on any given night. Obviously, I think Jaden and Trevion are going to lead us this year, but you got other guys on there who could, like I said, on any given night, put up 20 plus. So
I mean, you had a guy like Hunter who, obviously injury last year, and I think with a non-injury and having time to actually condition and properly, I think he can be. I mean, he was not the Hunter that we saw the year before last year, and I think he can be kind of back to his normal self, where he can actually hit the be consistent with his 3-pointer and be the point guard that we need him to be.
Yeah. And you guys mentioned you had your trivia episode in your last episode. You talked about the 5 guys who won Defensive Player of the Year since 2000. I think, Hunter, the solid season could become the 6th this year. That'd be solid to see him. I mean, if he can stop the other team's point guard consistently, man, that would go a long way as well. So, well, let's also talk about the future a little bit here. Miles Colvin, I don't know if you've been following the Miles drama, but it sounds like right now some good news that him and his family have politely, I think the word said politely, declined the overtime elite or overseas elite, whatever it's called.
Elite overtime.
Overtime elite. Yeah.
I have never heard of it before Miles Colvin. So before he had this offer, I had never heard of this league. I have no idea if they've played a game, if they're about to play games, who's playing in it. So I don't know about you guys. I wasn't overly concerned. It's a cool honor for him, but I was like, seems kind of crazy for him to just like, well, I'm just going to skip college and go do this, especially with who his dad is.
Right. Those were the 2 reasons. There's 2 reasons I wasn't like worried about it, if you want to say worried about it. What a high school kid's deciding to do. His dad's Roosevelt Colvin, so there's no concerns about money right there. And with the new NIL deal too, like he's going to have an opportunity to make some money at Purdue, possibly. We can get into that topic a little bit later if you want, but so I was like, I think at the end of the day he'll still go. I mean, his family loves Purdue. His sister's there now. His dad played there, so I felt like I don't think the decision would be because of the money. It would have been some other reason if he did.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. I wasn't too concerned. Then I saw the dollar amount and I was like, I mean, there's a reason to maybe give that a little second thought, maybe. But I think the reason you just said that, the fact that who his dad is, like I said, he's not, no one talk about his financial, but I think they're doing okay. But then, I think just other fact that they're just a pretty family, through and through. I mean, like I said, his sister's been committed and now a freshman at Purdue, but she committed, I think, as a freshman in high school. So they are, they bleed black and gold, which is awesome and cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. Should we talk a little bit about, well, before we move on, anything else about men's basketball you guys want to talk about?
I'm just really freaking excited.
Yeah.
And I hope we get a full Mackey.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a real shame if Jaden Ivey doesn't get to experience a full Mackey when he posterizes somebody on the opposing team. Yeah, that's what I hope. And I know Tanner and I have talked about, Tanner and I went to our first concert a couple weekends ago and that was our first big event since COVID. And we're both kind of like, man, the first time Purdue runs out on Ross-Ade on a night game is going to be, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. And I want that same thing for Mackey, which I know indoors can be a little trickier right now, especially being in the winter, but man, I hope we can have a full Mackey.
And yeah, it's always plays to our advantage as well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm with you. So dare we talk about women's basketball just a little bit here? There's a little bit of excitement. I think there's excitement. Of course, Katie Gerald's, that's an exciting transition there, bringing her back to the program. She's obviously killed it at Marion. So I had her on earlier this summer, and she's awesome. So excited about the future there. She's already starting to recruit well and hopefully keep some of the talent around. I know some people left. That could possibly do it another situation if you want to touch on that in a minute. I was off the grid last week. I went down to Southern Kentucky, and I come back and I'm trying to catch up on some things, and I see certain investigation possibly going on, and I was like, what did I miss?
We'll have to see what comes out of it, but it's not good no matter what. I mean, anything pops up like that, especially, that's putting Katie Gerald's in a tough position. You're already trying to learn, the program, recruit. This isn't what you need when you're trying to go out there and get the future players of your program. I mean, I like how Purdue's doing that with Gerald's, though. They did it with Matt Painter. It's worked out great. Did it with Danny Hope, didn't work out so well. But even though I still could say he deserved one more year, but I'll get off my soapbox. But no, I like the plan they got in place for her. I think this team's going to take some lumps this year, potentially even next year, but I think she is the right person for the job going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's exciting to bring her back, the alum back to the program. The other person on my list was Austin Parkinson. I think Katie makes a lot of sense. Of course, I love Austin. He's a friend of mine, but he's done such a great job with IUPUI women. And of course, he's a Purdue alum as well. So I would have been happy to see that as well, especially for him. But yeah, Katie's brings a lot to the program. And of course, being a former Purdue women's basketball player herself, I mean, she knows the program through and through, and she played for Versa. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited to see what she does. I think, she's so active on social media and just promoting Purdue every single day. So it should be good. Hopefully we can return to the glory days. Of course, I was a freshman the year after they won the national championship. And then my sophomore year is when we went back against Notre Dame as well. So, it's an exciting time. Actually, I won't go too far on this tangent, but when I was at Purdue, the men's basketball program was struggling a little bit. Women's was, through the roof, and those were included in the ticket package I had. So I actually went to like every women's basketball game while I was there. Of course, that was all during the Coach Curry era as well. And so it was exciting to watch that program play some pretty good basketball during that time.
So you got to see women go to the national championship game. You saw the Purdue men's go to the Elite Eight. You saw us go to a Rose Bowl with football.
Yep.
And I got to see Daryl Hazel I got to see us go.
We got to see us get last in
my junior year. We got
basketball.
last in football and basketball. That was
my senior year.
I had Drew Brees my first 2 years. And that was pretty fun. And my freshman year, again, that was my first year really starting to follow and root for Purdue sports wise. And our men making to the Elite Eight. I think lost to Wisconsin 3 or 4 times in one season, which is kind of unheard of. And it's another small side sort of tangent. That Elite A game, and I guess it would have been March of 2000. Tickets to Third Eye Blind was at Purdue that night. Me and a friend were going over to watch Third Eye Blind, so we were waiting for that game to get over before heading over to Elliott Hall of Music. So
I think it was kind of your experience. Obviously a little different than ours, the fact that we grew up Purdue fans, but I think just obviously athletics aren't everything, but I think having a really good athletic program or just programs can really do so much for your Purdue experience and really, keep you much more involved moving forward. Because I knew a lot of people, in my classes that, who didn't grow up the way I did in terms of being a fanatic, but, I talked to them in class, like, oh, you're going to the football game tomorrow, you're going to the basketball game. And when things were struggling, I was like, no, I'll go to the tailgate, but that's about it. And, don't see them really posting anymore about, Purdue moving forward, whereas there's other people who had got to experience, like my sister, who's a few years younger than me, she went to Purdue, she got to experience, us going, getting back to the tournament and kind of the very beginning of the Jeff Brom era, some of those fun things. And you can definitely tell that those kids got to, have a different type of fandom than the kids who might have been, when Tanner and I were going to school, because of just the timing of everything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, like we said, so hopefully women's basketball gets back on the right track. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I just want to throw a few topics out of more recent note. I don't know if you guys saw, just curious your thoughts on the Purdue Pete. I mean, maybe I'm
first off, our mascot's a train, so they're wrong there.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree. I will say that
he can be a little creepy.
Third is bring back Rowdy. That's my.
He's better than Rowdy.
I loved Rowdy. That was
bring him back.
When I was at the basketball games, he'd come out during a timeout and turn over and get on his jump down on his head. I don't know why that went away, and maybe we should.
No, I miss. We got to have Purdue Pete and the Notre Dame Leprechaun fighting again. That's what I'm dealing with that back. We haven't had that in a while since Notre Dame. No, Notre Dame's ducking Purdue. I think they're scared.
It could be worse. It could be the Purdue Pete Cabbage Patch looking edition they brought out in 2011 spring game. It lasted for a week after the university showed out tons of money on it, and I was at that spring game. The loudest ovation of the day was it getting booed. Carson Wiggs made like a 69-yard field or something absurd that day. The boo of Purdue Pete got a louder ovation than that.
Well, that's funny. Like I mentioned, I was on vacation last week, and I come back. First thing I hear when I walk in the door yesterday afternoon was, "Sorry about Purdue Pete," and I was like, "What happened?" I was like, "What? Like get in trouble? What happened? They get rid of him?" And like, "Oh, creepiest mascot in America." I was like, "Oh, well, first of all, train and
there's some there's I can see it. Yeah, there's some.
The sunken eyes. It's yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on from that. You guys following the name and likeness, and where do you some brief thoughts on that?
I think it's long overdue. It's just funny to see just some of the wacky endorsements that some of these kids are doing. I mean, I think like as the kids are figuring out sort of the businesses, it's just like we're throwing at the wall and seeing what sticks. Mm-hmm. I know our podcast is being sponsored by the shop in Indianapolis, a t-shirt shop and apparel shop. And they've gotten 14, 15 student athletes from either Purdue, Indiana, Butler, I think even Ball State. We got a Ball State football player, I believe. They're having a lot of fun with it. They says they've cashed some decent little checks to these athletes, which is awesome that they're just making money just as, off of their image, and even doing things like being able to, which I kind of didn't realize was not even a thing, but like just having a kid being able to run a camp in his hometown and being able to make money off that. Like the fact that they couldn't do that in the past is absurd. I think it's good. Really interested to see where it goes. And I'd be interested to see, what's the money's out there. Obviously, you've seen headlines of, the certain, Alabama quarterback getting, an absurd amount of money. But I think obviously you're mostly going to see kind of microtransactions here and there for a lot of these kids, as much as they want the big deals. But I think it's going to bring on some interesting situations. I was listening to another podcast, and it's like, what happens if a kid gets approached, they go to a Nike school, but they get approached by Under Armour to do some deal, obviously the school has the deal with one brand and but they're not supposed to be able to tell their kid that they can't make money off their name. So that'll be, I'm sure obviously it's a compliance officer can give me a very much easier answer than what I'm thinking of, but I'm looking forward to some of the chaos that ensues. I'd
be curious the same thing, what those agreements are, because you think of like the Alabama quarterback who hasn't even started a game. What like the $1 million deal? How many years is that? Is it going to go into you're assuming that he's going to be in the NFL and we want to be tied with you for the next 15 years, and we're just going to do it now when you're cheap because you're a junior in college that hasn't started a game? Yeah. What the agent, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. I go back and forth on, is this going to help or hurt Purdue, or hurt a school like Purdue? And I know there was a basketball recruit from Lafayette. I can't remember his name, but he kind of talked about Purdue's pitch was that, if you're local, you're going to have a better chance of getting a bigger name. Like your name is going to mean more in the state of Indiana than it is in the state of North Carolina or Florida or something like that. So you're going to get a better deal theoretically. So that was like, okay, that's a good pitch. That sold me that, okay, stay local, stay close to home. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it helps Purdue keep some of those local Indiana guys. But again, IU's going to have the same pitch too. And but
bigger fan base too.
But maybe it's some of those guys that maybe are going to go to Ohio State to be potentially a backup at some. I mean, maybe start their junior, senior year, but maybe come to Purdue and contribute as a sophomore. Maybe it's like, okay, I can maybe encourage them to try that. I don't know. So I'm kind of leaning towards helping Purdue. I don't know. Talk myself into it.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings because, policing it, like you mentioned, if somebody who hasn't committed to a school yet, gets offered by a business in the area, I'm just going to throw out Bloomington or whatever, but, says, hey,
because it happens.
Come to the school. You come to the school, then we'll give you that deal. And where does that fall as far as compliance and recruiting violations and whatnot?
Mm-hmm.
And, for me personally, mentioned, does this help or hurt Purdue? I firmly believe, let's say basketball, for example, that Matt Painter's run a completely clean program. And again, going back to Michigan, I feel like John Beilein was probably one of the cleanest coaches in America, So those teams who were doing it the right way and weren't, cheating to begin with, I wonder if it hurts a program like that. I don't know. We'll see how this kind of plays out. I know it's good for the student athlete. I agree with that, as long as we don't lose that student part of the student athlete. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And if it helps the kid, I'm all for that, as long as, it can be policed correctly. And I just hope that doesn't put more on, a Coach Painter or a Coach Brom or whoever to have to police these things, for lack of better terms. So
I did hear a joke. It was funny. I was going to see who's going to be the first student to be ruled ineligible because they are not paying taxes on these things.
Yeah. So hopefully nothing terrible comes out of it. And of course, the NCAA may have to adjust or show some grace on some things too. I don't know. If they can, somebody might say, "Oops, I didn't understand the letter of the law." I don't know. So creating
a lot of headaches for the compliance office at Purdue and other schools, I'm sure. And for Painter, I'm sure Painter loses sleep over it, and all the other coaches. That's what I was kind of curious as you brought it up, Adam. I was like, I wonder, like Painter runs a clean program, how much does this add to his job? Is it him? Is he the one who's got to go out and kind of like entice these businesses in Lafayette or Indiana to say, hey, come sponsor my kids to help me get a better team and grow the name or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear Painter's take on it, or any coach's experience, especially a few months down the road as they get through it.
Yeah, I agree. Tanner, anything else to add to that?
I think both these guys covered all my thoughts. I just let them roll with it. So I think it's good for the student athletes, but it's going to be interesting to see how the adjustments that are made to it as time goes on.
Yeah.
Jerry, another thing I heard on another podcast was like, what happens, kind of this whole policing thing causing headaches is like, what if, a kid is being sponsored by a local car dealership and like, oh, we're shooting a commercial this time at 4:00 on Tuesday. Well, we got practice at, 4:30, what's, you losing out on money or, losing the spot. Obviously you'd think that they would, go to practice, but you never know.
Or skipping class. Or skipping.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're student athletes. Yeah.
I had 4:30 classes. Yep. There's the classes that late.
For sure. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I know a trivia is a big deal for you guys as well. I don't know if Tanner or anybody's prepared any, but as you're kind of figuring that out, I have two jerseys hanging behind me. This is my trivia that I brought to the table here for you guys. I have actually I have three jerseys, but that one, Coach Goff sent me that one. That was pretty awesome. The Purdue baseball jersey over my right shoulder, your left.
Side note, I love what Purdue's doing with their jerseys for baseball. I think they've got some of the best jerseys I've seen.
Yeah. I got a football jersey behind me and a basketball jersey. I want to see who will be the first one to guess whose jersey that actually is when I got it, when that jersey became a jersey for that particular program. All right. So we got the number 9 Purdue football jersey. I'll see if you guys can get it before I even mention what year I bought it.
Dorian Bryant.
Robert Marv.
Andrew?
I was going to say, I think it's like a defensive end, like Ray Edwards or something.
Ray Edwards, I think, was what, 10?
Yeah.
It's like 15, 10. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10.
Evan got it. It was Dorian Bryant.
Yeah, I knew. I thought I was different. Okay. Yeah.
I was somewhere between that and I guess Stu.
I like to pretend it's a Schweiger jersey. Although Dorian was great too. I think I bought it in 2007. Actually, after I was done at Purdue, I think I found it like for real cheap at like a TJ Maxx or something, which is a great place to find that kind of stuff. All right. How about this one might be a little trickier for you guys. The number 3 jersey behind me, not who you might think it is.
I think I know who it is.
Brett Busher.
Evan?
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about Bush. I was going to say like Chris Hartley.
And it's you've got me stunned. Gosh, I was going to say Kramer, but I don't know.
Go with it. Why not?
Sure.
I'll claim it's a Chris Kramer jersey, although Tanner wins because another region rat, Brett Busher. Yeah.
I forgot about Busher.
Gosh.
I think I bought that in 2003-ish or so. So yeah, Brett Busher jersey there. Although a lot of greats have worn the number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
That's the That's about college jerseys. I mean, other guys come through and wear those, and they can just say, "Oh no, it's this. That's this."
Yep.
Sorry, Andrew. Go ahead. I keep cutting you off.
No. It's funny. You're thinking about that. Like when Tanner said Rob Henry for number 9, I was like, oh man.
I said Robert Marv.
Robert Marv. Yeah, Robert Henry. Yeah, jeez, Rob. Yeah,
that's awesome. Rob Henry did wear number
15. 15. Yeah.
Definitely not the greatest foot producer.
No.
That's awesome. Did you bring any trivia to the table?
I didn't have any prepared. I should have.
Did not know.
That's all right, as we're kind of wrapping up here and running out of time anyway with the Zoom call here. So, hey guys, thank you so much for
thank you. This was awesome.
This crossover episode. It's awesome to kind of cross promote each other's guys' podcast. A reminder for my listeners who are interested now, where they can find the Boiler Breakdown podcast.
Yeah, you can find us pretty much on any of your audio platforms. And then we stream live every week on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Boiler Break Pod.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Well, hey, we'll have to do this again in the future.
Hey, thanks, Adam.
Awesome. Boiler up.
Thanks.